Let's call the January 28th Town Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Before we get into the business part of the meeting, we have two proclamations to present tonight for our two registrars of voters who recently stepped down. So I'd like to read those now and we can get a picture. All right, we have Leonard Bach and Michael Wyman. They're both basically the same, so I'll just use, I'll read one. Yeah. Oh, nice to have more. Yeah. So whereas R. Michael Wyman and Lynn Bach are retiring as the Democratic Registrar of Voters and Republican Registrar of Voters respectively, Mike and Lynn have been valuable members of the town of Tolland. Their extensive knowledge of the election process and their dedication to the town has earned them respect and admiration of their coworkers and the residents of Tolland. Most importantly, instilling trust and confidence for all participating in the election process. During their many years of service, Mike and Lynn have conducted several presidential elections, state elections, municipal elections, primaries, special elections, and 38 referendums for Michael Wyman and 16 referendums for Lynn Bach. During their many years of service, they've maintained and updated voter registration information, trained election workers according to state statute, prepared election equipment and tabulators, ordered ballots for each election and primary, conducted an annual canvass, implemented new election laws, and attended Registrars of Voters Association conferences and meetings. They are also longtime residents of town, and they will both be sorely missed by their friends and co-workers at Town Hall. They've been more than just co-workers, they've been friends and mentors. We want to thank them for their hard work, their dedication, and their kindness, which has always been a source of inspiration. So be it resolved by the Town Council that the Town of Tolland hereby recognizes and thanks R. Michael Wyman and Lynn Bach for their professional service and for their personal dedication to the Town of Tolland and its citizens. We honor them for their service and offer them our sincere best wishes for the future as they embark on their retirements.
Tammy has one to read, right? Don't you?
We do.
Yeah, they have one.
Yeah, unless you guys are taking pictures, we.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Do yours and we'll do the picture after.
Yeah, we can read all of them and do the picture.
Which one is which?
Oh, golly.
So, Lynn, we have a citation for you and for Mike from the Connecticut General Assembly. Before we start that, I would just like to say, as an elected official, I have always had the utmost confidence with you and Mike running our elections. I never once questioned our election results. You guys were always responsive, above board, transparent, and non-political. And I can't thank you enough for giving Tolland that many years of excellent service and the ability for us to have ultimate faith in what was happening in the elections.
Thank you.
Listen, no, I thank you. So we have again citations from the General Assembly. Be it hereby known that all the Connecticut General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to Michael Wyman and Leonard A. Bach, in recognition of Mike's 25 years and your 14 years of service as the Registrars of Voters of the town of Tolland. The Connecticut General Assembly expresses its deepest gratitude. Your exceptional contributions to the election process, commitment to the community, and mentorship have left a lasting impact. We honor your service and wish you all the best in your retirement. It is signed by the entire membership. It extends its very best wishes on this memorial. I've been so very early. Memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. It is signed by President Pro Tem Martin Boone, Speaker of the House Matt Ritter, and Secretary of State Stephanie Thomas.
Very nice. Well,
And thank you, I've known you for 20 years now.
That's right.
A couple.
And I
Two, three,
just
you know.
appreciate, your willingness to do the job, and provide and make sure we have secure voting and safe voting in the town of Tolland. So thank you for your dedication and service.
well, with Mike, it's been fun. We've really, it's a lot of work, but we've had fun doing it. The other thing is, I want to mention that our little department here, Register of Voters, we've touched so many other departments here in the town, from the fire marshal to the building inspector when we change polling places, to the public works to help us get the lights up in the morning, make sure the traffic's flowing around. Town clerk is, I think she's in touch with the Secretary of State more than we are. And then, of course, we disrupt everybody up at the senior center, at the rec center, and the Tolland Library. So we involve a lot of people when we do our job, you know.
Thank you.
You do it extremely well, so thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I guess that is what.
Just wanted to do a group picture?
Sure, Counselor, you check.
Are you able to put, maybe go in front of the shield?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll move the chairs.
Counselor, you check. Okay, you want to say it?
Yeah, that's right. Fine. Fine.
What do you want to do? Say?
We're gonna move you back there and take a picture.
Come on up here, Mr. B.
It's your time.
You get to come smile.
Yep.
You and the council.
Want to do separate, do you want to do them all together?
Whatever, do a council and it's two minutes. Yeah. Come on up.
You're
Mr.
up
B.
there, you're the star.
You're the man of the
hour.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Good, thanks.
Get right.
Jacob, can you move the chair out? Can you move the chair out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You got this.
Go ahead, now you guys.
Now you guys.
Congratulations.
You got it. Down one.
Picture here.
Yeah.
Hey, it's nice to have you.
Big time.
Thank you.
How you doing? Beautiful. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Congratulations.
You bet. Thank you. We'll see you. See you around. See you out with us.
Good, are you?
Oh, yeah. You know what, but we know what?
Thank you. It's very nice.
Thank you so much.
Bring that.
I will put a sign after.
Good night, everybody. That's it?
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah, thank you, Counselor, you can check it.
I'm sorry.
Words to say.
Vice Chair Marie and Mike.
Yeah.
They have a few more things.
Oh,
No, he's stuck on the cord. First, I mean, something, I almost like I'm everyone with Tammy, but anyways, I just wanna congratulate, you, Len, and Mike, unfortunately, he's not here tonight, but your dedication, expertise, and keeping the elections with integrity and honesty is exemplary to your work ethic. I have talked to them several times during elections to either get numbers or just to stop in and say hi. And I gotta tell you, Brian probably knows they're both very funny guys. They always have donuts in their office, but we are gonna miss them, and the bar is definitely set high for the 2 new, I believe they're deputies right now, until the next election, I believe they are. I wish them well as well. Just good luck, Len and Mike, please on, I'll leave the minutes. And what are we gonna do next?
thank you very much.
All right.
Well,
Thanks, Lauren.
Then I'll just quickly echo the praise for you and Mike. I always have the highest confidence in our elections with you and Mike, and we really appreciate your dedication to the town. And I know I talked to Mike before tonight, and he couldn't make it. He's doesn't like a lot of attention, but he definitely appreciates the council doing this. So thank you both very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilors. And thank you again, Lynn, for all your service.
I used to be in 5th and 6th grade here.
Oh.
All right,
Don't forget Shane.
Yeah. Thank you.
Judgment call. All right, it brings us to item 5, public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council. Please note that there is a 2-minute limit for any comments. So do we have anybody in the room who would like to make public comment? Anybody online? Looks like we have one person with their hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Chris Jimenez, 68 Anthony Road, Chair of the Tolland Democratic Town Committee. I wanted to start by congratulating Mary Lee Beebe on her appointment to the Town Council. As you guys know, Mary Lee brings over 30 years of experience as an elected official on various boards and commissions here in Tolland. And this is going to be an experience that will benefit the entire town of Tolland. I also want to congratulate Len Bach and Mike Wyman on their retirement from Registrar of Voters. And as you know, Mike has served over 25 years in this role as Registrar of Voters, making sure that Tolland has safe and fair elections. Also want to congratulate Brenda Felucci as the new Registrar of Voters. And I can't think of a better person to continue Mike's legacy than Brenda, continuing the safe and fair elections in Tolland. And lastly, I know he's going to hate it, but I wanted to wish Councilor Moran a happy birthday.
22.
Thanks. Thank you. Do we have anybody in the room who would like to make public comment?
Dennis Deegan, 689 Tolland Stage Road. Just a couple of things. First, I guess I called up the week before Christmas with the snow on the speed limit sign in town that prevents everyone to see just how fast they're speeding by. And they took care of it, which was great. And then after snow this past week, I was looking out the window and they went and did it, fixed it, or just prevented that from not having the solar power needed. So I did take the opportunity to call Tammy and thank her. When she heard my voice, I think she was a little reticent, but she quickly realized that I was calling and thanking her. So, which was good. I did appreciate the fact and that they made note that in a storm that had to be done. So I think that was a great positive thing. The other thing, I guess, just a quick update from my standpoint. I mentioned in the last meeting that the letter that came out from the assessor's office indicated that you could go online and look at the information and that you could schedule a meeting through, I thought it was February 1st. That information is still not online and I don't know when it will be online. So if you want to look at that information, you actually have to go here to the assessor's office, which they're very helpful at showing you how to look at it and find things. So just takes a little extra effort. And the meeting schedule, I guess, I was told at that point when I made my meeting was through tomorrow, which is when I have mine. So that being said, I guess the only other thing that came up with a lot of things going on here in the country is, as I'm sure you all know, yesterday was a big day in the world events, the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Given my current lifestyle, I had the opportunity to pay attention to some of it on BBC News and had the chance to listen to King Charles, who I guess I'll say I'm not really a fan of, but he did a fabulous job of pointing out exactly the importance of recognizing that event. And I guess giving that some further thought, with reading different things about it, obviously it came to light. I know from my standpoint, I had kind of grown up thinking it was just the folks of Jewish faith who were the ones that were exterminated in Germany. And I learned that's not the case at all, that there's a lot of groups, including gays, lesbians, the disabled, gypsies, and among other things, okay? So, and a lot of the literature will tell you, suggest that most people were like me. They did not know the extent of it. So I guess my thought was I didn't know whether or not it made sense. And again, I couple that with some of the things that are now taking place in this country, that it made sense maybe for the town council to have a proclamation in terms of recognizing the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and basically how words can lead to actions and actions can lead to very detrimental results. And if you do decide to go down that path, I think it would be very good to not just put words together, but actually recognize specifics in history of exactly what took place, how it took place. And as supposed Americans, we need to be cautious of those kinds of things. So thank you for your time.
Anybody online for public comment? Go back to the room. One more time online. All right, that will close out public comment. And we'll go to item 6 for public hearings, of which there are none today. Which brings us to item 7A, reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. Which I'll turn to Ms. Udacek first.
Yes, so the firehouse subcommittee met. It was a special meeting on June, oh my goodness, on January 15th. We briefly discussed station 140 and 440. There's just some things going on with the engineer, but I believe they are making good progress, so that's good to hear. So hopefully we'll know more at the next firehouse subcommittee. Megan just updated us also that we had some damaged metal trim over at station 340. The apparatus bay doors, and that has been replaced. Additionally, there's some plumbing issue which is being repaired as well, which is under warranty. Not much more than that. It was a pretty short meeting. I think we were just hoping to get some other things done during that meeting, but it just didn't work out. So I'm looking forward to hearing eventually more engineering in the future for the projects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
ARPA, so you know from our last meeting, was dissolved, so there's no more reports up on that.
Yep.
Councilmember Rand, did the road salt task force meet?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Brian, is that right?
That's accurate.
Okay.
I know there's been
Weekly touch bases.
Yeah.
With Deep and DPH.
yeah, and I know, we've talked, things like that emails, but yeah, no meeting.
Okay. I believe I'm missing anything. Brian, do you have any general updates from CROG or EHHD that the council should be aware of?
No, not EHD, you'll hear about that during budget time, slightly.
Right, we'll go to item 7B, reports of town council liaisons. Councilor Buckler, did any committees meet for which you're liaison?
Tax. Were you going to?
I was gonna cover it on my manager's report, yep.
All right, beautiful. So nothing else.
Okay. Councilor, you to check?
Sure. So Commission with People with Disabilities met next day on January 16th. They are working on putting together a monthly newsletter, which the Human Services Department is helping them put it together. I believe, is it Teresa? Is her name? Yeah, Teresa in the office there. She's assistant director, is helping them with that. And the first one should be coming out soon. And each month they're just going to highlight some sort of disability, things that people might not even be aware of that are out there. So that will be good. Talked about the green, the walkway a little bit. And then Sue, the chair, also mentioned there's some new House bills out there that they're discussing. I believe it's House Bill 5372 and also a Senate bill, 400. It's talking about the IQ, that it might be changing, that could be affected in some of that, the IQ values. people that their IQ does not qualify for services, they might be having it go up, so it's gonna be a little bit hard for people. But basically, I believe that's what we talked about.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
For me, the Water Pollution Control Authority had a scheduled meeting. There was not a quorum, so they're not technically had a meeting. However, they did discuss normal operations that are currently going on. I don't think there's anything major to report.
As Councilor Buckler mentioned, the tax sale committee
Yeah.
met, but Brian will talk about this in his town manager's report. Planning and zoning met last night. Unfortunately, I could not attend, but they had a pretty light agenda. They went over their 2025 goals and they talked about some 8-24 reviews. So I think it was a relatively light night, and that is all I have.
Thank you.
And I haven't been assigned to anything,
Yes.
so yeah, so.
Lots of take care of that.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. Counselor Noonan, did you have any committee activity to report?
Which one is?
I think it's iPhone 8N. Oh, we're trying to let you.
I'll get him to be, we couldn't make him a co-host until we knew.
Yeah.
There he is.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So I apologize for my absence tonight. I was reassigned to a timber frame aviation kit over in Summers, so I excuse my absence. I have nothing to report as far as that goes, but thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Comment that doesn't have to do. So I'm just wondering where we're at with the board of ed liaisons. I sent you Chris. Oh, that's something. Okay.
No, I can answer
All right.
it right now.
Yeah.
Chris is your-
No,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the issue is that I got a new phone, which locks me out of my email on my
Right,
PC.
yeah, I remember seeing that.
So I haven't been able to really send any emails with like PDF attachments or anything, so we agree on the list, Chris and I, and Chris is gonna send it out
Do it right now.
for the both of us,
Yeah.
so.
Just because he still doesn't have access, but yes,
Everybody said it was okay with it, really just gonna surprise. All right, what?
I think at least the conversation we had was that if you can't make it, to
Okay,
try
that's
to
fine.
find someone to cover for you, swap for you, that kind of thing.
It's pretty good. I did listen to the Board of Ed. I couldn't go to their last meeting, but I learned to watch meetings.
Yeah.
I did as well.
So, did you want
Yeah.
an update?
Uh,
Want to give an update just from?
Oh yeah, I can do it. Yeah, that's true. I can do it now. I wasn't thinking about that. That's fair. Thank you. Yeah, because that was on the meeting. So I attended both the Board of Ed's community budget workshop, which was, I think, before we put out our rotating liaison list. And then I also attended the Board of Ed's last meeting. I just want to mention the community budget workshop was a fantastic opportunity to go to the high school, meet with administrators from all over the schools to hear about all that they're trying to do for our students, ways that they're trying to keep the budget as trim as they can. But at the same time, recognizing that they're trying to provide really important services for our students. So it was a great way to really hear directly from the people in the building, the people interacting with our students. That was helpful. The Board of Ed's last meeting where they started discussing the superintendent's proposed budget, the chair explained that the budget process this year for them is just taking a slightly different approach, which is that prior to the budget starting, the Board of Ed had, I guess, set some priorities or goals for Walt, Dr. Willett, and so Dr. Willett was asked to put together a budget that would fund all of those things, and then the board will now, I guess, be talking about which areas they want to prioritize, balancing that with the impact on the budget and those types of things. So they didn't make any decisions at that meeting. They just sort of began that conversation. So,
Thank you.
if I missed anything, Colleen, feel free.
No, you covered it.
Okay.
I think the next meeting, it sounded like that's when they're really gonna crank down.
I think so.
Yeah, right?
Thank you. Right, that brings us to item 8.1 under new business discussion renewal of health insurance by Seth Levine of Lockton Companies. Brian, did you want to set us up with that?
Sure. Obviously I have our financial director and consultant Yolita and Lisa. We have our Seth Lockton, who is a consultant who we pay to advise us on health insurance, and Seth's ready to talk. So this is the annual, basically, we pre-budget, we talk about health insurance concerns coming up. Always, health insurance is always a driver, likely will be of the increased budget again this year, but Seth's here to talk about it.
Thanks, Brian. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Yep, you're all set,
Oh, okay. Good.
Seth. You're a co-host, so you can share it.
Thank you. All right. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see it.
We're good.
Perfect.
Do a presenter mode, we could.
Perfect. So I just wanted to start with recognizing that, I mean, right now, our clients and people in the community are hearing all sorts of stuff regarding health insurance. So I'm sure, many of you have heard that costs are on the rise. We're seeing the biggest jump in years. Treating patients is the main driver of the cost, and inflation is signaling unrest. 9 to 10% increases are being passed on to employers during the next couple of renewals. And just wanted to give you a little bit of, I guess, background from our perspective on, how to think about that. One is, yes, our actuaries are looking at emerging data, and we are seeing increased healthcare costs for 2024. But I will say that, I think looking at inflation right now, I think last time I checked, it was right around 3%. And looking at some of the steps that the carriers are taking behind the scenes with provider negotiations, and listening to their earnings calls and hearing some of the stuff that's going on there, I think we're starting to feel a little more comfortable that, hopefully we should see some of this, large inflation start to slow down. One of the biggest impacts that we've seen this year, and this is across the whole state for our municipal clients, is a meaningful increase in the number of cancer diagnoses and treatments that are resulting in large claims on health plans. As I look at the Tolland data specifically, last year for cancer, there was 10 claimants, and this year there's 13. And we're also seeing increases in bone and joint. So last year there was 6 claims in the bone and joint category, and this year there's 15. So those two things are really driving healthcare costs right now. And what our actuaries are saying about it is, as much as we want to, put COVID in the rear view and think it's still not having an impact, we think that some of this, it's not deferred from COVID, but if we think about the underlying things that contribute to some of these conditions, a lot of it has to do with, we'll call it an aging population combined with unhealthy lifestyle. And from COVID especially, you have an increase in alcohol consumption and probably a lack of diet and exercise. So I think as we're talking to a lot of our clients, it's, this is a good chance to revisit and make a priority, wellness programs. And Tolland has a great wellness program that they work with, but there's a good chance to probably, reinvigorate and communicate again. And also with a lot of other clients, it's starting these programs and thinking about how do we prevent future large claims, knowing that it's really hard to affect a large claim once it's happened. One of these diagnoses is severe. So we need to make sure that we're getting at the future generation and trying to instill healthy lifestyles. But real focus of today is on the data. So for everybody who's new, I like to show a historical view so everybody can kind of get a sense of how everything's run in the past. And then for everybody who's seen this before, I'm sorry. Starting with large claims, we look at starting in 2015 and running through 2024, there used to be, somewhere in the range of, 40 to 50 claimants or so, over 25,000 in claims per year. And more recently, we're seeing 66, 61, 67. With the claim dollars associated with those, instead of being in the 2 to 3 million, being over 4, which on a group the size of Tolland does have a really big impact on claims. It makes it very hard to know exactly what's going to happen year to year from a prediction standpoint. We try to make sure that we're prudent with our projections and try to account for as many of those things as we can. But again, it's very hard to predict. But we are seeing right now still a high amount of large claims. And when we look at that in perspective to the total claims, I'm looking in the middle of the page. The total group gross medical RX dental vision claims remained very steady for a long period of time. And it wasn't until 2021-22 where we started seeing that getting over 7 million. And in this most recent year, up to 8.4. Now, we do have stop loss protection in place to make sure that individual claimants of large value over 175,000 are capped, and then Tolland's reimbursed for those. But even with those reimbursements, we're still talking large numbers, 7.4 to 7.9 million the past couple of years. And there hasn't been any significant increases in headcount. In fact, the actual average number of employees and members on the plan has gone down over the years. And so I guess if I look at it in total, what we're looking at is, from the previous slide, the net dollars for claimants over 25,000 for this past 12 months is about 4.2 million. The total net claims after stop loss is 7.9. So 53% of the claims are coming from 67 members. And then 47% of the claims is coming from 770 members. So that's where we're talking about the real impact of these large claims on the plan, and why it's so important to make sure that we're communicating with the employees and trying to have everybody be as healthy as possible. Any questions from the group?
Any questions so far from counselors? I think you're good.
I just first want to say, I don't think some things are just because of health. I think some things are also hereditary as well. So I just wanted to also say that. So I sent a list to Mike, which she answered. I believe the council, she got the the answers. Just one question I have, but I guess it's more for a budget. I'm just gonna put it out there so it's in the minutes. I was just looking for history on budgeted to actuals for the last 5 years. For the Board of Ed and town list separately. Just curious if we might under budget or over budget. It'd be good to probably see that a little bit clearer. But since I got some of the answers back, I just came up with some other ones today on my day off. I was just wondering, I know some employers do it, like an incentive for possibly employees either on the town, the board, or that side, to take their spouse's insurance if they can, and they get an incentive of some sort of, so that way that could also save money. I don't know if that's ever can actually save a lot of money if you can have family members take somebody else's if possible. I know in previous employees I've worked for, they've done that. Is that ever something that's thought about or could save the town some money by doing that?
Just, I mean, again, I'll let, obviously, you know, the Board of Ed in town really speak to that in more detail, like later on, but just general from an industry perspective. We see that quite often in the commercial space. It's not as popular yet in the municipal world. I think when we've been doing our surveys and benchmarking, it's become increasingly hard to hire and retain, employees for municipalities, and so they've been looking a lot at that fine line between, we can do this and save money, or we can do this and not be competitive with our benefits with surrounding it, with the surrounding area. So I think it's been hard so far, but conceptually speaking, yes, that can be a cost saver. Really, it's about finding what is that right amount to offer somebody to leave, where you're not just going to get the healthy people leaving and going on their employer's plans versus having all the sick people stay. Because then you're losing premium contributions, which also come back to the town and the Board of Ed. And so it's really finding that right balance overall. Does that help?
That makes sense. I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I don't know how often they do it anymore, but yeah, thank you for letting me know that. And so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to point out to you on slide 8 that I did, where I listed the average member to employee. So when we're looking at a commercial plan, typically that member to employer ratio, which is the total number of members divided by the employees, usually that's somewhere around 1.3 to 1.5 on a commercial plan. And on a municipal plan, and on Tolland's, it's around 2.5. So that is what you're seeing, which is, municipalities cover a lot of dependents.
I guess that was one of my further down questions was, we have, I would assume town and Board of Ed, 336 employees on the plan. Is that like employees on the plan, not their family members?
So the employee column would be the actual employees themselves, and or if there's any pre-65 retirees on the plan, they're still kind of considered an employee in the insurance world. And then the member count would be the employees, the spouses, and the children.
It sounds like a good amount of people to town Board of Ed. It's where I work, we take a lot of schools and municipalities use the Cigna. So it must be a decent plan. And then I had asked about the workman's comp, which I don't know if this is for Mike or staff. And I know workman's comp is not part of health insurance. And I just guess I didn't know how to really word it. So I'm just wondering, honestly, if someone's on workman's comp, I think Mike, you said about 20 is an estimate. So I would think that anything that's workman's comp, you can't bill as a claim to your health insurance. It would have to come out of a different category, right? Out of your workman's comp budget. So you're not counting those claims towards your health insurance?
Yeah, so no, we don't pay claims for workers' comp. We pay insurance. So we pay a premium for our workers' comp insurance when someone's on workers' comp. That's paid by our insurer. So, and that's not captured. This is just health insurance. That's a separate budget we have for workers' comp. That's budgeted separately. So, and again, we're paying an insurance premium. Once people go on workers' comp, it's paid for by the insurance company.
Right, I was just wondering, because you can't bill both, but you can't take a claim. If someone can't say it's a claim in health insurance for the employees when it's really a thing for the town or the Board of Ed. So I just want to make sure that that's taken out of it. And if it's not, that should probably be looked into.
No, that does not happen.
Okay, all right, and then Seth already answered, or it was in the presentation, and then just looks like you said it's gonna go up by about 9%. how much did it go up last year?
Are you talking about our health insurance?
That sounded like yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole question or.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you either.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. So I was just asking, how much did it go up last year? What was the?
So,
number?
so our health insurance, the rates went up 0% last year. It's been 0% 3 out of the last 4 years.
Okay, so it's going up 9%?
No, it's, Seth's original estimate was about 13%, 13.18%. After meeting with the Board of Ed, we're gonna use a small amount of reserve to go down to 12.09%. So that's what the rate is, the rate increase is right now.
Okay.
That's the rate increase. The separate part is what's budgeted. So Brian's working on his budget right now. There's obviously other things that can affect the budget number, including census numbers. If, for example, we have people leave and someone else comes on and doesn't take the insurance or vice versa. So that will affect the actual budget number, but right now the rate increase is going to be 12.09%.
All right. Jacob. Chris, I think that's all. Yeah. Yeah, that was it. Sorry.
Thank you.
And I don't know, Lisa, if you want, if they need it for the minutes, the questions. That I submitted to Mike and Brian and the vice chair and the chair, and went out to the council. Mike, should that go into the minutes, the questions I asked? They were answered or no?
I'd have to check to see who.
That's what we normally, I don't know what we normally do.
Normally end up in the minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Any other counselors have questions?
Just a, I guess a procedural question, sort of similar to Councilor Yudichak's. With respect to the presentation, I know Councilor Yudichak brought up, does this get incorporated into like the agenda or into minutes or anything like that, so anybody can see the presentation, or no?
That,
Yeah.
it was run here, it will go into the minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes it's nice to have officials
Yeah.
to watch it.
Yeah.
That's why I do this.
Yeah.
The other counselors?
I guess I have one quick question.
Yep.
As far as where our numbers are trending in the increase, is this kind of where, what municipalities are seeing across the board?
Yeah, great question. I would say that for the size of Tolland, yes. These large claimant increases particularly hit the smaller towns. But we are seeing it even on some of the larger municipalities in Connecticut. I'd say that the rate this year, the average of our clients is going to be, somewhere around, 10 to 11% overall. That being some of the larger ones at more around 6, 7, and then the smaller ones being, 11 to 17, somewhere around there.
I'm sorry, when you say larger and smaller, you mean the size of the municipalities?
Yeah, so Tolland has 336 employees on the plan, and so a larger one would be like over 1,000 employees on the plan. So there's a much larger population to spread claims over.
Okay, so the more, so to someone who doesn't do insurance, so the larger the pool is, the lower the percentage is gonna be as far as the increase goes. But when you have a smaller number of people on the plan, it's obviously there's not as much, not as much room to spread those claims against, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes, yep. And you're thinking about it right, yep.
Okay, thank you.
How many towns and school boards participate in E-CHIP?
Ooh, Mike, do you know?
There's, I think, 5 entities, municipalities, boards, and then EastCon.
Okay. So 5 towns and boards of ed combined, or?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, I did have one question.
Go ahead.
I think you asked one of the
Yeah.
questions I had. So one of my other questions in here, I asked, the Board of Ed and the town have different plans. And you said that the town only has one. Is there a reason why they're only offered one plan versus two?
We've always had one plan. The Board of Ed used to have multiple plans, but they whittled it down to, they have really one, and there's kind of a hybrid plan they have. So I guess you could call it two, but it's really one. So we've always had one plan. There's not enough employees for us to have more than one plan. It wouldn't make sense. But the Board of Ed had multiple plans going back, but they've slowly squared it down to just basically have one, and then they have this other hybrid plan, so it's basically two.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Levine and Mike, for giving us that overview. Definitely appreciate it. Definitely helpful information to have as we go into our budget season.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Seth.
That brings us to item 8.2, discussion on years of amortization scenarios for future road debt.
Yes, as discussed, we went to referendum, and it passed for $7 million. For $7 million referendum to pay for basically paving our roads. We used to do 5 million over 5 years with $1 million a year to get X amount of miles per year. That inflation, the cost of everything went up, where $1 million a year was no longer doing it. And now we went to 7 million for 5 years. And that's where we stand right now. And so there was some discussion on how best to amortize that money over through debt. Over the how many years we would do it essentially. So obviously this was prior to Yolita coming. I have Lisa here and Bernie Bernabe, our debt counsel. Lisa, do you want to say anything?
I was just trying to get the presentation up. Yes, good evening. I know as the manager outlined, we were looking at for different ideas and different scenarios. And I think Councilor Shea was very much involved with that question. So we looked at different opportunities for financing and ideas, and we were just bringing this forward tonight to share with you some of the information that our financial advisor has. And let me just check. Barry, did you want to put your own screen up rather than this so you can move it the way you want?
If you wouldn't mind, Lisa, you could leave it the way it is and just go to the second page.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry about that. All right. Can you see that?
I don't. Oh, there it is.
You can, okay. All right, so you got that there, and
There you go. Oh,
there you go. Is that the one?
yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Good evening, and Lisa, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been asked to kind of present to the town various bonding amortization options for roads. You know, I could say after listening to Brian there, I've been doing this for a number of years, over 20 years. And I remember when I first started, many communities had roads in their operating budget. They're kind of pay as you go. And I could tell you over the last 20 years, I've seen a lot of them move it out to 5 years to 10 years. And now most of the communities I work with actually amortizing roads over 20 years. However, I personally don't think there is an objectively right or wrong answer. I think it's a policy decision for each town. I think it's kind of a continuum. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but to tell you how long the average road lasts. But you know, just one basic bad example is like if a community wanted to borrow for, say, a police car and amortize that over 20 years, I would say, well, that's probably not a good idea because the police car probably won't last 20 years. But roads are kind of unique. So in this analysis, we have 3 different options. amortizing over 20 years, 15 years, or 10 years. And there is a different interest rate for each scenario, because the longer you go out, the higher the interest rate. So 20 years, the interest rate's estimated at 350 based on the current market. A 15-year bond issues at 325, and a 10 years at 3%. So if we go to the next page, Lisa, page 3, we could look at some quantitative analysis here. That on the left-hand side, you'll see a 20-year bond issue for $7 million at 3.5%. That second column from the left, and you could see the debt service payments over 20 years. And to the right of that, you see the same $7 million bond issue over 15 years at 3.25%. And then the last column is where the rubber meets the road. If the number is in black, that means the 15-year option costs more each year for the first 15 years, because you're paying that debt over a shorter period of time. And then if you look at the last 5 years, the 15-year option has significant savings. But of course, they're all in the last 5 years, because in the 15-year option, that debt is paid off after 15 years, whereas the 20-year issue, you're still paying it. So basically what this chart says is at the bottom there, it's roughly about $750,000 roughly of savings to the town by amortizing the roads over 15 years rather than 20 years. And that kind of makes sense for a couple reasons. One, again, the term is shorter, so you're paying interest over a shorter period of time. And of course, the interest rate is lower. So it's kind of a double whammy, saving the town money. Of course, the downside to going 15 years is that all those savings are in the last 5 years. And for the first 15 years, the town's actually paying more, slightly more each year. And it's the same thing on page 4. Is if we were to compare the 15-year to the 10-year, same theory, same concept here. The 15 years at 3.25%, the 10 years at a lower rate at 3%. So when you look at the last column, again, there is a savings of about $650,000 in aggregate to the town by amortizing the bonds over 10 years as opposed to 15. But again, if you look at it, you can see all the savings is in the last 5 years of this scenario too. Simply because after 10 years, the 10-year option's paid off, and the town will have more room in its debt plan to layer in additional capital needs. But again, the town has to pay a little bit more each year for the first 10 years. So it's somewhat straightforward in a way. And just to kind of some summary points here. Again, I don't personally think there's a right or wrong answer. It's more of a policy decision. The shorter the amortization term, the less aggregate interest. Currently in the debt management plan that will be presented in the near future, we currently use the 15-year option, and the debt management plan actually, I think, looks pretty well. I mean, working with Lisa over the last several years, I personally think it's been very, very good in that the town's been able to do all these capital needs with very minimal impact to the town's budget. And the main driver behind that is that the town's existing debt service is running off at an aggressive rate, and you're allowed to slot in these new bonds with minimal impact. So again, with the 15-year option, the plan works well. But again, I really think it's up to the town to decide which option they're more comfortable with from a budgetary perspective. That's kind of the end of the presentation. If there's any questions about it, I'm more than willing to address it.
Somebody, yes.
It looks like Councilor Noonan raised his hand, so we'll go to him first.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo those sentiments. I would have to agree with the aforementioned because, like he mentioned with the example of the police cruiser, I mean, that's the car, that's a depreciating value right off the bat the second you buy it. And obviously something that may not last 20 years. I think just with how expensive materials get every year, The less oil that's in the roads these days, the less tar that's in the roads these days. I see many of like the highly traversed roads in Tolland last no more than 5 years, like 5 to 7, I would say. So I definitely agree that the 10 to 15 year range would be favorable. And then that way we do have those 5 years where we wouldn't be paying, to plug into other capital needs.
Thank you. Next, Councilor.
Thanks. This is a question I think probably more for Scott that I know that we talked about when we last talked about this, but I can't remember. How long have when we've been refinishing roads or repaving, do they last? I know it varies on what type of road it is. Can you I know you talked about like sort of like residential roads or versus like main roads. What's the average lifespan we're getting?
Within a neighborhood, secondary roads, you're probably gonna see around 20 years. The primary roads like Grand Hill, Sladeville,
yep,
those are closer to 12.
Okay.
12 years.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, you to check.
Chris actually asked one more question. So my only other question, what Alex is saying, but would it be really worth? I know Joe's big thing was to get the interest as low rate, that if I remember right. So, and I know he just said it's more of a policy thing, but from the finance side, what would make the most sense? I mean, I think Chris or Scott just pointed out some last for 20 years. So if we went with 15 years, that's still fine, because you still get another 5 years.
There's no, like you said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's currently we have a debt management plan.
Yeah.
Currently we do it at 15. If council as a whole directs us to go in a different direction, we'll go in a different direction. We have our plan now at 15. He says it works good, but they all work good. It's, where do you want to go? What are your thoughts, Lisa?
Thank you. Historically, we've used 20 years because that's been the average life of the roads. In addition, with trying to work it into the debt management plan with all the debt that we had previously, we really had to use the 20-year scenario in order to ease the burden on the budget and the tax base going forward. This particular plan, now that debt is starting to fall off the books, we put it in at a 15-year amortization schedule, and it was able to absorb the higher payments. And that's where you have to look at the decision that you all may make is to just how is it going to fit in your debt management plan? Because the worst thing you want to do is add, if you did a 10-year decision, okay? Yes, that's going to save a significant amount of money compared to the 15 years or compared to 20 years. We're doing 15 right now. However, that first year, it's going to add another $210,000 to your budget that, even though there's some debt falling off the books, the first and second year, we might be able to absorb that cost, but the third year, we're gonna have to be adding to the budget based on the plan where it is now. Well, not add to the budget, but we're gonna have to work our way with our debt management plan where I have some funds set aside to cover that. I don't think there'll be enough to absorb the extra couple $100,000 each year going forward until that debt starts falling off. So those are some of the things that you're going to want to think about if you decide you prefer a 10-year plan. Then we just got to try to find a way to work it into the debt management and the budget to make sure that it doesn't impact your tax rate and your mill rate and all that going forward. We would have to just juggle things around and see how it goes. And scenarios can be done to see what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
It's up
to we say one rate. I don't really estimate this really three, but so can you, if all of a sudden it sounds like that's risk, making it less years if we're not sure if we'll have enough for future. That my real question is say if we just stick, I'm just saying, I don't know what everybody else wants to do, 20 years, can you, when you figure out, we might be able to afford this, can you go out and like basically refinance, or you can't?
There's a lot going on legislatively at the nation's capital right now, basically on that topic as it is. One of the things is, at this point, I wouldn't recommend 20 years. I would recommend the 15 at least. Because our debt management plan can absorb that and it's gonna save money on interest expense. So, in my opinion, you could do the 15 years that's in the plan, or we could look at, if you look at the 10, then we just have to see, it's not a risk. We just have to make sure that there's sufficient funds available based on what's falling off the books or other debt that might be able to absorb it. And again, that would save even more interest costs over the life. So I'm not saying it's a risk, we just would have to balance it out and try to make it work.
I only said remember risk was the wrong word, I was just concerned that the
Okay.
budget, because the budgets are always so tight. That if
Right.
we tighten it more than.
That's it.
affects,
So-
I don't think it would actually affect the operating budget, right, just the debt.
Well, it could, because some of the plan is with some of that money, expense of debt falling off our books.
Yeah.
The plan was to reprogram that towards more pay-as-you-go financing and issue less debt in the future for some big ticket items, rather than having to issue debt for a dump truck. We could possibly build reserves, and this is all a council decision, but it's what's been recommended since we started this debt management plan. But to help put funds aside so you can buy that dump truck without having to issue debt. And it's all policy decision, as Barry noted. But it depends on what way you want to go with it.
I think we'll go around once and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, Counselor Butler.
I think one of the things that has to be kept in mind too is there's definitely going to be a balance between what the burden's going to be on the town each and every year compared to the cost savings. The difference between 20 years and 15 years is overall $747,000 and change. But if you break that down over the 20 years, it's only cost savings about $37,000 a year. If the burden on the town to go to that 15-year plan is not a significant burden, well, then maybe it makes sense to do that. But when you're looking at, maybe going from a 15-year to a 10-year, and you're talking about paying significantly more each year, and that's a significantly more higher burden on the town, and you break down that cost savings, they'll save you about $43,000 a year. And I don't really know if it's worth putting the town through that for 10 years just to save $43,000 on average a year. It may be too much of a burden, or it may be something that just doesn't make sense for the town. I mean, it's if you were saying $652,000 a year in savings, that's a significant amount of money. So there's definitely a balance between, what are we putting the town through in order to be on a tighter schedule to pay these off, compared to what are we actually saving the town in the long haul. And I think when you break it down over that long period of time, it's a significantly less amount of money, that you're saving. I think the 15-year plan, it sounds like it's something that the town, I don't want to say to swing, but it's too late for me to use more eloquent words. So I guess it sounds like something the town can swing at this point. It sounds like it's a lower interest rate than the 20-year plan, but I'd be really hesitant to go down to the 10-year plan, because it does sound like it's, for those 10 years, it's significantly more we're paying, and really what is the benefit to the town?
Thank you. So we did you.
I have a quick question for Mr. Lappin, which are you overall satisfied with the lifespan that you're getting from the resurfacing with the restorative work that's being done in terms of our primary routes about 12 years and our secondary routes, you said were about 20 years? To me, that sounds like an actual good result. Is that something that you are?
It is, the
happy
process
with?
we're using now is what they call cold in place recycling, where we actually go in and grind up the existing pavement. They put an additive in it.
Yeah.
Then when we're done, we put a 2-inch brand new cap over the top. What's been done in the past is come in, put a skim coat down, put another 2 inches on top, and then the cracks reflect
Yep,
through.
100%.
2 years and it starts breaking apart. I know this is a little more costly. We're not getting the mileage that we used to get because it's much easier to just pave, but these roads are lasting a lot longer.
Okay. So you were, so I'm looking at this as a cost of like lane miles, right? For $7 million, you can get so many lane miles done. And our real cost isn't 7 million, the real cost is actually anywhere from 8 to 9 and 9 point. What's it? I'm sorry, I lost my place. So new with this. Yeah, so at the 20-year 9.4, so we're adding $2.45 million to the cost of the same lane miles as, you know, if we were, the differential is $1 million, like $1 million over 10 years, or 2.45 additional $1 million in interest over the 20 years.
Right.
So since we're getting good results, we're getting good longevity, it sounds like. I think that if we wanted to stay at the 15-year level and try to even it out, that is, we're not taking a risk that we're gonna have degradation done and find a road right back on the same list all over again. I guess that was my concern, is if we're at that point.
Right, you have to keep in mind that I'm in my 10th year, we've done just shy of 40 miles of road. We have 125 miles of paved roads.
Yep.
That's gonna take approximately 30 years to do.
Yep.
By the time you get to that 30 years.
You're starting over.
Yes.
Right.
It won't be, hopefully they won't be anywhere near as bad as they used to be, because they have a good base. And we're hoping that we can build up for that, but 30 years I won't be here.
Okay, thank you. And if there's other recommendations that you would make to further improve performance, you know, please let us know that, right?
Thank you. Are you good? Or-
I'm good, thank
okay,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll get to Councilor Noonan in a second, but I had a couple questions, before we go around one more time. So, just to be clear from a process standpoint, when we talk about issuing debt, we're talking about issuing just a year one road debt this time around, right? So this question will get revisited, year 2, year 3, year 4. Is that an accurate statement?
I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
let me see if I understand. We're not gonna issue the whole $7 million that we just approved by referendum in the first year. We issue $1.4 million a year because essentially that's the amount of work that Scott could get done. So the scenario shown here, whereas if it were
Issued at the same time.
and issued at the same time. Just to try to give you an idea of where that's at. The way our plan is programmed now, our capital debt management plan is we have $1.4 million for the next 5 years. Programmed starting next year. And it'll be issued, each one of those will be issued out for 15 years. That's how it's planned. But just to try to show you the difference if it were all issued at once or however, that's, Barry, am I correct? Is that how you presented it here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay.
Were you asking, are we issuing it all at once or over several times?
Not really. I figured we would issue it, you know, in chunks per year.
Right.
But I think what I was trying to get at was, we're making, in this capital budget cycle, we can make the decision to issue debt for 15 years, debt year 1, and then we can revisit it in year 2, and you could maybe decide for the series of bonds you'll issue for year two, you could do a different amortization schedule, is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for any
Yeah.
issue, you can change the debt. Your debt situation may fall very favorable and you may say year two, we want to go out 10 years or,
Okay.
whatever. But we look at the debt management plan every year, actually sometimes a couple times a year, depending on what we're working on. And that's something that could be considered, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I think counselors kind of asked they did a lot of my my legwork that I was gonna ask here, but I'll just get to my statement and opinion about the matter. It looks like, if the side roads are lasting about 20 years, and for the main roads, you're getting maybe 12 years, and as Scott alluded to, we might end up in practice repaving them less frequently than that, based upon available funds and resources. It sounds like with a 15-year amortization, you're not going to be at a high risk of having a lot of debt that you're paying off for roads that have already been repaved multiple times. That was kind of my concern, is that you'd be paying bills for basically an asset that's already been redone, which doesn't sound like it would happen. I think it does make sense to save money where we can, but 15 doesn't sound unreasonable to me this time. Yeah, and also just to be clear, we'll be able to revisit this again when we actually adopt a budget later on, the capital budget. That would be the time where you could discuss this.
Yes, or when the budget, the $7 million has already been adopted.
Yes.
Okay, so you would not be considering that. However, when Yolita takes over and starts doing the debt management plan and all that, certainly there could be input from council. Normally, we haven't had input from council, but I think it's great if you want to share your opinions or concerns, absolutely. But if she knows ahead of time when she's trying to develop that debt management plan, then she could say, okay, council wants 10 years.
Yeah.
And we work with Barry to get the amortization schedules calculated, and we pop it into the plan and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I think the town is going to be in very good shape unless something like another Birch Grove, God forbid, comes up. We planned on being in a better position before this, but that unfortunately happened.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate to have a good grant, but still, we still absorb some more debt that we hadn't planned on.
Okay. And then just to follow up to that, when do you actually issue the debt for year one? Does that actually happen?
I have been issuing it usually in September.
Okay.
I think our plan right now calls for August, but right now I'm floating some, instead of issuing debt last year, I didn't. Because it wasn't feasible or cost beneficial to issue debt last September. So there was just a small amount of money needed, and we had enough cash on hand that we're floating it, so that we're not absorbing the issuance costs, the attorney's fees, the advisor fees, the interest cost. We're losing a little bit on investment income, but we're doing well in that area also. But so we may have to issue August of this year. I think it's all going to depend on when Yolita looks at the cash flow needs, and if it could wait till September, we push it out in September.
Okay, but like in the third quarter, it's later.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Counselor Noonan, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so just kind of echoing what Lisa said, this will be a question really for Brian, but Lisa, if you could help too. Just from my understanding, obviously, if you can pay for something over a longer period of time, keeping APR financing and interest rates in mind, you do it. But if you have the money, which in this case, it sounds like we do, you get it done quicker. as far as the 15-year and 10-year, Brian, after we're long gone as council members and your kind of view on where the town's projected to go and having new businesses come in here, and Lisa, this is a question you might be able to answer too. Do you feel like that would be the opportunity to alleviate those year 3s and 4s where, you know, those expenses will kind of hurt us a little more just because we are paying more?
I didn't understand what you were saying. Can you go, did you?
I think. You're asking if we went with the 10-year option and maybe years, you know, the first few years we're issuing the 1.4 million, but then years 3 or 4 in the plan where we're issuing 1.4 million those years, maybe going out for only those years at 10 years, or the whole 7 million each year at 10 years.
Yeah, I was more so trying to ascertain if you think 10 is going to hurt us in the long run, if that's too short.
I think it's all going to depend on all the other factors that could possibly be affecting the budget. You know, you're gonna see some loss in motor vehicle tax revenue and grants from the state that are affiliated with that. You know, some of those things are on the horizon. However, you have some new developments coming in. The new developments may well offset some of those losses. So when you're looking at the long term, you have to try to consider everything that may affect the town along with what your debt will be to try to create a picture of some sort of balance for your future. And, you know, just what you can absorb. So I think it just takes, you know, looking at it each year and seeing what your situation is when you're doing the budget process and go from there with the recommendation. I can't tell you right now if it would hurt the town or help the town. Certainly it'd be lower interest, but you're going to be absorbing more costs up front.
Right.
And that's the thing, of being able to absorb it. I know for a few years, we will be able to absorb higher payment. But then there's some more debt coming on based on the plan. So, and again, that changes every year.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Councilor Moran?
Yeah, one question and then a couple of comments. So if I remember right, previous to this time, we've been amortizing it over 20 years.
18 to 20 years.
Okay,
Right,
so-
Barry?
Yes. Okay, so going to 15 is we're going in a good direction as far as saving the town money over the long term. And I think that's important, and I think that's a good thing. And I also I agree with Jacob that with 12 years and 20 years, you know, 12 years for the residential roads, 20 years for the more main roads, 15 years seems pretty reasonable to kind of like fall in between that. And I think we just have to, I think 15 years does a good job of balancing sort of long-term savings to the town, with also recognizing that we have to provide services to the town now. So not chewing up, you know, too much of our budget, you know, absorbing too much over like a 10-year span. I think 15 years just strikes a good balance between long-term savings for the town and being able to accommodate it in our budget. So I like that we're moving in a good direction from, you know, 18 or 20 years to 15. I also would be probably hesitant to go to 10, but 15 seems like a good spot.
Thank you. Councilor?
Is this something we're voting on or going to vote on, or just
So
like a general consensus?
I think this is more informational, but as we go into our capital improvement plan budget and the overall budget, you know, that would be another opportunity to make recommendations. But right now, I don't think we should.
Right. Normally, the council doesn't vote on the life of the debt. However, we can take advisement from you. If there's a strong advisement that you wanted it for 10 years, then we try to make it work. If, you know, but normally it's not a vote, because that's more, honestly, it's our jobs to try to put it together. Again, your advice and your recommendations are very important and taken to heart for sure. So that's just my comment.
I feel comfortable with the 15 years too, but. Alright.
Thank you. Yeah, and just maybe final thought, if we were to make an advisement deviating from what's already in the proposal, that would require you potentially to have to reshuffle things, correct, if that number went up or down. So that would be something to consider. There's secondary effects to moving it around. Any last questions from counselors? Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Lisa, for giving us some information on this topic.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Bear.
Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night.
You too.
See you.
Fine.
I'm sitting up here because I'm the next topic too.
A lot of fun finance tonight. Item 8.3, financial update for the period ending 12/31/24.
Thanks. As you know, we have a quarterly financial update, so there's no surprises. We're ready for our financial update at the end of 2024. We have Yolita Lazowskis and Lisa Hancock to discuss it.
Okay. So for years, I just want to preface all this. For years, even before this council, before several councils, we always provided financial reports. They were in different formats. Mainly, they were always included with the town manager's report. So I just want to give a little history of that we've always provided the financial reports. It just wasn't in the format where we came to council and spoke about it unless it was, you know, something very, very important. We started the process a few years ago with Tammy and Katie and everybody else to more formalize it. And rather than just putting it with the manager's report, we present it to you. So for the benefit of Council BB, I just wanted to share that information of how this came about. As you know, this is just a snapshot. This is as of the end of December, actual financial results as of December. And then we try to work with department heads. We look at trends. We look at actuals of where we're at, information that we get from the state. If we happen to hear that a grant is not going to come in or is going to come in that we didn't plan on, all this is taken into consideration when we try to do our year-end estimate. And it's going to change within the next quarter again. Different things happen. Businesses in town sell. You may get more conveyance fees, property tax fees that you weren't planning on. You didn't know they were going to sell. Things like that happen. So as of the December 31st snapshot, which you have in front of you this evening, I'm estimating that will have a little over $131,000 that will increase your fund balance at year end. With that is $113,000 extra in revenue, mainly again from investment income. And investment income can possibly do better. Right now, I'm estimating close to $150,000 extra in investment income at the end of the year. It's all going to depend on what happens with the investment rates going forward. We've already seen one lowering, but we're still doing very well. So it could be better, it could be worse. Tax collections, we're estimating a little 162,000 in that area. Again, it's still very early to tell. Part of that has to do with we've collected some pretty hefty prior year collections, but also the big kicker in this has to do with motor vehicle supplemental taxes. We had estimated, I think, about 22 million being the tax bill per se for motor vehicle supplemental. You never know what that's going to be. until the state advises you of who bought new vehicles. Came in at closer to $24 million. That's pushing over $100,000 of extra income if we collect, based on my estimated collections. So that's the big driver of your property tax excess that we're reflecting here, along with the prior taxes. Intergovernmental revenue, I think, is going to be fairly even, minimal, couple $100 extra, based on what we've been told. Originally, we were hoping for the municipal revenue sharing to come in, and that was definitely, we will not be getting those funds. We have been advised by the state, and so we've enjoyed that for the past couple of years. It helped increase the tax stabilization fund and help increase capital non-recurring, allowing us to do a little more pay-as-you-go and things like that. However, we're not going to see that this year. Education grant revenue is running fairly close. I haven't been advised by Department of Education that there's been any adjustments to ECS as of yet, but there's still time as they do their adjustments after they get their year-end information and compile that. Sometimes they can adjust the ECS payment like in the last quarter that they pay us. It all depends on last year's financial audit information that they look at. Charges for services, there's two players in this one here. We're looking at about $115,000 in extra revenue. Part of it has to do with building permits that are way up. And we also added, as of the last council meeting, the sale of cannabis revenue, so that the town is absorbing close to $40,000 in revenue there as part of that $115,000. So I'm estimating between the building permits and the cannabis revenue that will be around $115,000. Investment earnings, I already spoke about $150,000. The municipal tax stabilization, we had offset the budget this year and proposed to do it for next budget. Also, use of the municipal tax stabilization funds of $300,000. Those funds have been transferred into the general fund for the purpose of balancing the budget. And it's going to be part of the proposed budget for next fiscal year as well. Expenditures overall, and it's still a little bit early. We're trying to get through the winter. There's still things going on. Overall, we're estimating about $18,000 in expenditure savings. That could be more, could be less. It all depends on attrition. It depends on how much salt and sand we have to purchase, how much overtime for public works, things like that. We do have some savings under, well, I'll go one by one. Under the administrative budget, we're looking at a possible shortfall of about $18,000. We don't have a shortfall at this time, but I'm trending and looking at some of the expenses, such as for legal fees. And the legal fees have just been exorbitant this year, as they were last year, and it's trending higher. So if it continues, I'm estimating maybe a shortfall of around $18,000. We don't have that shortfall as of yet, but it's just something to watch out for. Human services, about $8,500. That had to do with the caseworker position that we're hiring for right now. We just did interviews. So in the meantime, there's some attrition there, some savings from what we had planned in that department. And it had the not only the caseworker, but it was for the director of the senior center also. So some of those savings there are incorporated into that. Recreation, we're looking at possible savings of $7,600 due to a maternity leave, and the employee who is a part-time employee does not get paid for that amount of time, so she's taking it unpaid leave. Public Works, about 18,500. We're expecting a shortfall, but we are hoping that we can offset it with some savings from engineering costs. Some of that has to do with the refuse and recycling budget. Again, that all debate is based on tonnage, the use of, trash and having to recycle it, and we have to pay for what we send to the dump. So right now, that's kind of trending about $29,000 in a shortfall there. And we're, like I said, we're hoping to maybe cover it with some savings in engineering fees, and we will see if there's any other savings through attrition within the Public Works Department. But we watch it very closely to make sure that the overall budget is not overspent. Again, these are not current shortfalls, they are projected as possibilities. Public safety, we're looking at savings almost $36,000. This has to do with a couple of things. We had our resident state trooper resign. We had some attrition there. He was the Corey who replaced him was hired at a lower salary, so there was some savings due to that. But in addition, when we budgeted for the fringe benefit cost, they had given us one rate during budget time, and which was 47.65%. And then the state, when they did their final review of whatever they do in their budget process, maybe you know the answer to that, the actual fringe benefit rate came in at 37.24%. So there's some savings created there, as well as, a lower salary and lower fringe benefit costs. So we're estimating about $36,000 in savings there. Registrar of Voters, again, we have to see where this ends up after the year, but because of the numerous with the early voting and all of that, there were some extra costs associated with the registrar's office. I know we have some grants, so we have to figure out what grants can be applied towards this, and we go from there. Again, as I mentioned, we've had some employee attrition in Public Works, Public Safety, Human Services, and we're going to see the balance. Sometimes Public Works would have to do overtime instead of paying, if they're out one person, but they have to have someone else work overtime. So that eats up some of those savings. Other financing uses, as you know, our personnel contingency. We've pretty much moved the money to cover the raises that were approved in the fiscal year. Just made that note. So as I started out with my comments, budgetary fund balance could see an increase of about 131,000. Could be more, could be less. It's still really too soon to tell. Third quarter, you'll have an even better picture. We had originally planned on using 310,000 just from unassigned fund balance. We don't know if we'll even have to use that again. Depending on where revenues come in. Right now, my scenario shows us not using that 310,000 and still coming out with about 131 left over. It all depends at the end of the year. E-chip update. This was as of when we put this report together, we did not have December numbers. So this just shows you where we think the cash balance will be as of the end of June, based on actual year-to-date information that has occurred, as well as where we project expenses to be through the end, revenues and expenses net through the end of the fiscal year. So we're looking at about $1.5 million being available in the cash balance after we cover our IBNR, which is incurred but not reported, and our risk corridor, which is required as part of our agreement with E-chip. Again, that could change based on claims that come through. If we continue with the claims that we've had, that's kind of where I'm thinking we might be. That's all I have for the financial side of it. Also included with your report that we also normally just share with you once a quarter is our assistant finance director does a little report on the cash that we have on hand. You know, where it's located, what kind of interest rates we're seeing. And that's the second report that's included in here. If you have questions on it, I can certainly answer, but he just basically talks about the projections that I'm talking about, the investment income and all that. Do you have any questions?
Counselor Yudichak?
So how much is currently in that unassigned fund balance? You know,
What was it, about 8 million, 7-8 million, I think, for unassigned.
Yeah.
I think, I don't have the numbers with me, but we could certainly get it for you.
there's more.
There's more with overall fund balance, but some of that is restricted, reserved, there's different levels, committed. But then there's the unassigned, it could be maybe close to that. We'll have to get that to you. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know. And the numbers we have would be as of the end of last June. Because we don't have, we can give you an estimate of where we think we'll be this year. I'm saying maybe $130,000 to the better.
Oh, I think they found it. I have the.
Do you have it?
I think when we did the report for, is it unassigned fund balance was 12.3 million or 17.6% of general fund gap expenditures, or no?
Was that overall or unassigned?
This is unassigned fund balance. This was just from the.
Was that from
meeting
June?
From last month that we had with the auditor.
Okay, that was as of June. So we'd have to, we'd have to look at that plus what's happened this year. See what sort of encumbrances and other commitments are in place, but between 9 and 12 million could be where we're at. I can't tell you that number just off the top of my head.
I think you answered one of the other questions, is that we won't have to use the 300,000 that we.
310,000 is what you had a supplemental appropriation this year as well.
No, I mean,
we
like,
may
for
not
us-
have to.
Yeah, okay. Because I remember one of the big things that was said, I went back and looked at minutes from the budget last year. And one of them that was said that we would have to, we would have to actually plan for $900,000 new budget season because we were taking so much, but it actually doesn't sound like we'll have to.
Well, I mean, you'll have the money available to allocate it to next year's budget. So that, again, you always want to be careful how you allocate fund balance during the budget process. We've got some recommendations coming forward once the manager gets his budget done for potential use of the fund balance, but in a cautious way. Again, you want to preserve your bond rating, but you also want to be able to provide for the needs of the community. So there's some recommendations coming forward. If we end up not using that 310,000, that's even better for the scenario that's coming in the next budget.
Okay, I think that was all I had. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Moran?
Yeah, just to pick up on that, I remember Councilor Shea and I last meeting were trying to understand some of the funds. So I just want to make sure that fits into sort of what we're talking about now. So we're estimating at this point that we're not going to need $310,000 that was budgeted from unassigned fund balance, right? Did you say earlier that it was moved into the general fund when you first started?
The tax stabilization money is different.
Okay.
And that is in a separate fund.
Okay.
That $300,000 was moved into the general fund based on the budget requirement.
Okay.
Okay. The use of fund balance is a little bit different.
Okay.
But it all falls under that line item.
Okay.
So that's why you see a budget of 610, a revised budget of 610,200, but you only see 300,000 as actual, and then like a shortfall, which is truly not a shortfall, but it's just going to offset. You have other revenues offsetting that right there.
Okay, so our last budget, we had budgeted to use approximately 300,000 of municipal tax stabilization money. That has gone into the general fund.
Yes,
We had also budgeted or anticipated we would need about 310,000 from the unassigned fund balance, and that's the thing that we're projecting that we will not need to use,
Maybe.
projected.
Yeah, projected. I mean,
Yep.
that could all change.
Yep.
In your next 6 months.
Yep.
But let's hope it doesn't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Butler?
I just have a question for clarification. So the excess of revenue over expenditures is approximately $131,000 and change. Is that on top of not using the $300,000?
No, that's incorporating that into it.
So that's taking into account that we're not using the $300,000.
And we're using other revenues to offset the other expenses. So if you look at the last column on your sheet, you can see like under the revenues, 162,000 in tax revenue that we didn't plan on. The big ones, 115,000 for the building permits and the cannabis money, 150,000 for investment earnings. Those right there kind of offset the 310,000 you're planning on using. So right there, right on your revenue side, it's contributing about 113,000.
Gotcha.
And then if expenditures come in less, then again, if you've collected that tax money, and you didn't spend it all, then $18,000 will stay in your fund balance.
And
if it does.
that makes sense. So as far as when you go to the assistant finance director's memo, and he is talking about interest earnings budgeted for fiscal year 2025 is $656,307. We've exceeded that by $30,512, and that in his words that he feels confident this revenue budget will be exceeded by $350,000 by year end. So where does that factor in? So we're thinking we're going to earn, in addition to what we budgeted for the interest, we're going to earn an additional $350,000 in interest earnings. Is that correct?
I'm trying to reread what he wrote. That is his projection of where he thinks. What I'm showing right now is a conservative approach, because if there's things that he's not always involved with knowing how we're covering debt, for example, and using up some of that money that would be invested. We have to just see where it's going to be. It could be from 150 to 350,000. It's all going to depend on how we do in the next couple of quarters.
I guess you guys have a difference of opinion. He
We
says he
do.
feels very confident.
Well, yeah, he does. And sometimes he's right and sometimes he's not. And, I tend to try to be conservative. And, if I promised you 350,000 right now, that's a good thing, but if it doesn't come to fruition, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to look at the trending. It could be more than 148,000 that I'm showing, probably will be. Again, I just try to take a conservative approach before getting everyone's hopes up until we get to the third quarter. Then we have a much better feel for where we're at.
So just to add, and Lisa, it's correct, we did this projection, a month ago. I ran this afternoon just to look what we posted in Eunice, and on this line item, we already exceeded our budget by 20,000. So yes, we're going in the right direction. How much more, we don't know. So it's a timing.
Where does that? So say you get X in excess, right? Where does that money end up?
It goes into fund balance.
It goes into the fund balance. Okay.
It offsets, as I'm showing as an example here. If it's 350,000, then that number would be 350 in that last column. So then again, the net effect would be a higher contribution to your fund balance. It's all going to depend, and I think we'll have a better feel at the end of March, when you do that report, as to where the interest rates are really going. And, he's looking at interest rates now. If the feds drop it again, that could have another impact. So that's why I take a little more conservative of what I'm sharing early on. And then when we get closer on, that's just a difference of opinion, a difference of style. And certainly Yolanda might even have another style of how she projects her revenues. But I think when we went over this, we were fairly, when she and I looked at it, we were fairly close in agreement on what some of these numbers were.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Councilor Beebe?
Yes, I have a kind of an esoteric question. So thank you for the explanation and the history. I appreciate the background. Given that I'm seeing intergovernmental revenues, which I'm assuming are things like transference from like the state of Connecticut, is that correct?
Right, it's more like pilot money, payment in lieu of taxes. There's very little we can get. I'm trying to think what else is in there. There's a significant amount of revenues. The big chunk of that number is almost $1 million for what we get from motor vehicle tax payments for the shortfall between our mill rate and the cap. Because a while back, the state legislature adopted a 32.46 mill rate cap on motor vehicles, and our mill rate was 37.77. So the difference between the two mill rates, the state sends us money to help offset that revenue loss by them putting the cap. Now, what I mentioned also, I know it has nothing to do with today, but going forward with a property revaluation, if the mill rate goes down,
Understood.
then we're
That
gonna
affects
lose
the
that $1 million.
motor vehicle taxes, yes.
Right.
So the
That's where most of that money is.
So intergovernmental for education, is that ECS?
Mainly, yeah, and there's a small adult education grant in there.
So I know it's very early to be asking this, possibly, but given the unprecedented freezes that were announced at the federal level, and I know the state gets money from the feds, does that leave us vulnerable to any of these other intergovernmental funding sources?
I don't think we got that information yet.
No, we do, everything is so up in the air. Now they put a lawsuit out there to stop the freeze at least until next week sometime. But our ECS is up for possible revenue loss there anyway, based on the old process where, and you may not be aware of this, but they were phasing in a reduction because Tolland was one of the communities getting paid more than they should have. So for the last 3 years, due to COVID and everything else, they've held harmless our community. I have no idea where the governor's budget is going this year.
I think he said that we would not be suffering, like we would still.
I think I
That would
heard the same
be
thing,
wonderful
right.
because that's where I'm initially planning.
Right.
Or we are initially planning for next year, but you always face the risk of that formula finally being adopted or changed again.
Yeah, but this is on top of that, right? So I understood that because that's been years in the making. We've
Right.
been talking about that for years. So
Do you
is
think-
it likely that you may have a better view to this in the next quarter?
I would hope so. I mean, as far as losing anything this year, I'm hoping it wouldn't be much, if anything, in the current fiscal year. We're just gonna have to see what happens. I'm sure the superintendent is nervous about the announcement that came out today because there's a lot of
Right, because our
grants
obligations
that are not general.
our
fund.
obligations stay the same, and
Yeah,
right, if
right.
everything grinds to a halt at the federal level.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. Maybe it's just me not understanding the chart, but on the eChip page, there's two tables there. Top one shows a projected cash balance at both June of last year and a projection for the end of the fiscal year in 2025. And then the little table below it and correct me if I'm just not understanding it. But this shows the expenditures and revenue for Egypt, correct?
The little one?
Yeah, that's just, is that also?
That is, it's just trying to tell me where I think we're gonna be for the, whole year for revenue less expense, and it's estimated. Part of it includes actual,
Mhm.
so the average monthly expense is about 715,000, the actual monthly revenue is about 757,000. So where I'm looking at, for year end is possibly a net income of about 512, but it's all gonna depend on where
Yeah.
claims go.
But that's specific, it's specific to Egypt. correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just,
Okay.
I just try to show you how I was getting my numbers for that year-end estimate. And it changes as we get more and more actual activity, because
Yeah.
those averages will change.
Okay. So my question was, is it just looked like your small table shows income like $500,000 positive net income, but the balance goes down in the upper table for the projections from 2.3 million to 1.529. So I was just wondering if it looks like the net income is positive, wouldn't that mean our balance is going up at the end of the year? Or maybe I'm just missing.
Well, you would add all that, but then again, your IBNR also, we'd have to look at that number.
Okay.
Your actual cash, the 2.3 million did not include IBNR. That was your starting cash account number. That's what you had with the CD cash on hand, July 1st.
And what's
So-
the acronym,
so you-
IBNR?
Oh, I'm sorry, incurred but not reported.
Okay.
We
thank
have
you.
to set aside funds in case.
Is that 8% or 16%?
It's
16.5.
it's 16.5 for that and the risk corridor. I think it's about, Mike would know, but I think it's about 8.5% for one and 8% for the other. So if you take out that 1.3 million, your actual cash at year end is about $3.8 million, okay? So it would be going up, but there's other things playing into that number, and I'd have to take another look at this, but where we're estimating the actual usable cash is about 1.5 million. 1.3. Yeah,
Okay. Is that
yeah, about 2.8, 2.9 million at year end. And I know the net income is 512, but there's other
yeah.
factors playing in here.
Do you know offhand
That's estimated.
if you account for the incurred but not recorded on both June 2024 and what do you think we'll be at for June 2025, if that's an improvement or the balance is going down?
The 1.3 million that's shown here was the amount that was the IBNR as of June.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just showing it in this report
I see.
with that. That'll certainly change when this June comes around based on actual claims for the year. But for the scenario, we just showed what the IBNR and all that was as of June last year. So last year you had about $1 million between that and the cash. You know, you had 2.3 million, but 1.3, almost 1.4 of
Yeah.
it, you really were not supposed to use.
So it's more like about 1,900,000 to 1 million that was actually
Unencumbered. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, some of that was used towards this year's budget to help offset the cost to keep it a 0% increase.
Right.
So, and claims have, as Seth said earlier, have been trending a little more favorable. But we just have to see what happens.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, counselors, on the finance report? Well, thank you, Lisa and Yolanda, for giving us a nice update. Item 8.4. Consideration of a resolution to approve a purchase and sale agreement for the Tolland Marsh and the setting of a public hearing thereon for February 11th, 2025.
Yeah, so in order to get the grant that we applied for, the town through our land acquisition has agreed, or you told us to go ahead and pursue the purchase of the marsh. The original price was about $135,000 for the Tolland Marsh, which would be a reasonable price on its own. We did apply for and obtained a grant to cover 65% of that. That's $87,000. There are some strings attached with that. We have to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with the property owner to begin the work to actually purchase it. And in order to do that, we have to have a public hearing, and that's where we are today. I have David Cochran from our planning and he's also on the land acquisition. If you have any questions. Thanks, Lisa.
The councilors have questions for Dave or Brian?
Just a comment, being on the land acquisition advisory committee, whatever, I know we're getting the grant for a portion of it, the other funds come from like a dedicated fund that's set aside for land acquisition, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so this doesn't have any impact on our budget? Okay. Thank you.
That fund is not replenished or anything like that, and we'd like it to be, but that's just how it is now.
Yep.
What the balances after this?
So the balance once this is done should be in the $350,000 to $400,000 range post order.
Yeah.
We talked about an additional piece of property, but then that would have.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, had we bought that, that would have pretty much cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
I thought this was a while ago, one of the things, it doesn't really have to do really what we're voting on, it's a great thing. Was one of the things we were gonna do with that marsh, make it ADA accessible, is that area, or am I confused?
We'll make it ADA better. If there's areas where we can do ADA, we will.
I thought there was gonna be like a bridge or something, that, all right.
Yeah, so what we had identified in a previous grant application was sort of a two-phase approach. One is to buy the marsh.
Yeah.
And then following that, we will continue to seek grant funding to potentially construct some sort of pier that goes out into the marsh, which would be ADA accessible.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought I remembered. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions from councilors?
I just have a comment. Thank you for your effort on this. This has been talked about for decades. So it's nice to see it finally in front of us.
Absolutely.
It really has for decades. Crazy. Wow.
It is exciting.
So our sidewalks are moving at.
Yeah.
Actually, the sidewalks might, no, actually, yeah. No value. I'm trying to remember whether Mr. Thorpe actually talked about it before he passed on, but yeah, sidewalks are out there too.
Are they?
I have a couple questions. So one thing you mentioned here from the item was surveying and closing costs. How much are those? I think those would also come out of the land acquisition fund.
They will. So those are going to be about $36,000. We have to do an A2 survey of the entire marsh. The only portion of that property line that has a good survey is adjacent to the Santini's and then along 84. Okay. So most of it, they're going to have to go out with their waders and figure out how to survey it. So that gets expensive. And then also Adam Grossman's going to be donating portions of the surrounding upland area to provide a trail and access. So we have to survey that and draft those easements. So that's what brings that bill so high.
He's donating extra portions, you said?
Exactly, yes.
Because that's not included in this, but we don't have to pay for it.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. That actually was a good segue to my next question, because I appreciate the map was added in, and it's kind of hard to tell because it's an aerial photo, but it didn't look like there was much dry land in the picture, so I was just kind of wondering where the access would be for the property.
Right, so the access, so if you look at the aerial image, you can see where Grand Hill and Cider Mill split, there's a little field off to the left.
Yep.
So the idea would be that Adam's gonna donate a portion of that field to be used as parking. And then we're going to run a trail along the edge of the marsh property where it's dry, up to a point just a little bit behind the cemetery where there's a good clearing that the Conservation Commission thinks they can clean out and make a nice little kayak drop area.
Nice.
We walked it.
Yeah.
Prior to you, I believe, being on county, you weren't on for the walk, right?
I know, I wasn't in attendance. but-
Okay, Colleen, you were there, right?
Yeah, it was, I
We-
believe, Steve and myself.
Sammy?
And Sammy, yes, the
Yeah.
three of us.
So we did a walkthrough. We'll do that again, as we get closer, and have a look, see at what we're looking at, but it's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
Easy access from right there, right off before the cemetery there. It's a good spot.
Excellent, okay, thank you, and we just have one other question. I know Dave, you had talked to me about this online, but just for the, or offline, but just for the record, after we have a public hearing, assuming everything goes well with that, the council gives it its blessing, what happens from here to finally close the?
Yeah, so we're hoping the survey work and legal description and easement stuff will be done in the April to May timeframe. Deep has to review all that, assuming that that doesn't take too long. I would hope we would be able to close by the fall. But yeah, it's gonna depend, I guess, a little bit on how fast the state moves as we submit them documents.
Okay, so this surveying happens over the spring, but then you've got to build in some time just for the state to
Exactly.
agree, okay.
Yep, yes, because they have to be a party to some covenants that will be associated with the property restricted to open space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from counselors? Right, I will entertain a motion to adopt the draft resolution as outlined in item 8.4, page 30 in the packet. Is there a second?
Second.
2 seconds, because we're hybrid tonight, we'll do a roll call vote. Counselor Noonan?
Aye.
Counselor Buckler?
Aye.
Counselor Yudichak?
I,
Counselor Moran?
Aye.
Counselor Beebe?
Aye.
First vote? And I'm also.
2 hours.
So that is a good one.
But it's a good thing, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
At least it was a good one.
Yeah. So that motion passes, so set the public hearing for February 11th.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 8.5, consideration of the resolution authorizing our town manager to apply and accept a grant for the neglected cemetery account.
We apply for it every year. In order to apply, I have to have permission, you have to give me permission to sign for and apply for it.
Any questions for town manager? I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution in 8.5.
So, you got it.
I was gonna go really late, so I'm trying to.
All right, Counselor Butler makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Counselor Moran seconds it. Any discussion? No. All right, Counselor Noonan,
Aye.
Counselor Butler,
Aye.
Counselor Yudichak,
I,
Counselor Moran,
Aye.
Counselor Beebe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. All right. Item 8.6, consideration of resolution changing the name and expanding the charge of the road salt task force to the contaminated wells task force.
Thank you, Chair. When the road salt task force was formed, it was believed that road salt was a major cause to the contaminated wells. However, we've learned otherwise for the most part. And so it more accurately to reflect what we're doing, we're looking at a lot of wells that are contaminated from other sources. So it's, we believe, more appropriate from the previous chair. And she did a lot of work on the task force as well to name it the Contaminated Wells Task Force. And there's a resolution attached.
Question. Sure. That's okay.
Go right ahead.
Sorry, so regarding the task force, is it going to be completely different? Are we gonna have some residents that have well water issues on this new task force?
It's just, it is just a change of title, no formal structure changes whatsoever.
Are we ever gonna do that? I don't
What?
know. Are we ever gonna do that without residents to be on it? I know it comes up all the time.
Residents, oh, to be on the task
Yeah,
force.
Yeah,
Yes, we are moving through a legal process. I think everyone's in agreement at the right time. We would all like
Okay.
that.
Alright.
Gotcha. I didn't know. I thought you meant, never mind. Good job.
that's okay. We're all tired, but that's all I had, Jacob.
Okay.
I just wanted to, you sort of just touched on it, but yeah, I think it makes sense. This is just like, title change to more accurately reflect the work that the task force does. But the task force, I think, has been doing this work, and it's really important work. So yeah, I think this just reflects the work of the broader scope of the work that the task force has been doing. So I think it makes sense.
Is, with Joe, that you brought it up, Chris?
I'm gonna, take Katie's.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I heard you mention it earlier and I wasn't.
Joe. Yeah, there hasn't been a meeting yet, but yes, Joe's on it, but I don't,
Okay,
yes.
no, I was just wondering who Katie's replacement was, but then I caught you, not caught you, but I heard you say earlier
Yeah.
the update, so. What, Brian? It's okay. So, all right, thank you.
Anything else from counselors? Right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution of item 8.6.
So moved.
All right,
We're all like waiting the same amount of time to give somebody else a chance.
Give it to someone else.
Council Beebe makes the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Buckler seconds the motion. Any discussion? No. Councilor Noonan?
Aye.
Councilor Buckler?
Aye.
Councilor Yudichak?
Aye.
Councilor Rand? Aye. Councilor Beebe?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so motion carries. All right, item 8.7, consideration of a resolution approving the revised Director of Finance and Records job description and the town clerk job description.
Thanks. So in basic terms, the town clerk falls under the financial director. It has no practical reason to fall under the financial director. The historic reason is somebody didn't get along with somebody 2 decades ago, and they moved it from the town manager's office to underneath the finance director. Both those somebodies are no longer with us. We want to move it back under to the town manager. And it's a good fit. In order to do that, we have to change the job description. The job description is attached, as is a draft resolution. And myself and Mike will consider here to answer any questions if there are.
Any questions from council? Yeah, I know. I think it's been mentioned before. It's housekeeping.
Just kind of straightening some things up.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to revise the job descriptions as outlined in item 8.7. So moved.
Second.
Councilor Noonan seconds. Any discussion? No. Councilor Noonan?
Aye.
Councilor Buckler?
Aye.
Councilor Yudichak?
Aye.
Councilor Moran?
Aye.
Councilor Beebe?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so motion passes. All right, brings us to item 8.8. I think it's our last action item of the night. Our current board and commission vacancies. I know who wants to tee us up, but
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, tonight it's just 2 reappointments to the Tolland Water Commission, Matthew Kenny and Daniel. I'm not good at pronouncing. Turtle. I don't know what. Daniel.
Mr. T.
As outlined in our packet. So they've already been serving on it. You're on the Tolland, are you the liaison?
The WPC.
Oh, WPC, okay. Yeah, no, they've been doing a great job, and we're thankful that they want to continue serving, so I think we should, it would be great to have them to re-up their appointments.
I'll entertain a motion to reappoint,
Totally, yeah, I know, just.
to reappoint, Mr. Kinney and Mr. Tortolet, to the Water Commission.
So moved.
Second. All right. Any discussion? No, Counselor Noonan?
Aye.
Counselor Rockwood?
Aye.
Counselor Yudichak?
Aye.
Counselor Moran?
Aye.
Counselor Beebe?
Aye.
And I as well. They are brief. Right. That takes us out of new business. Yes, it's out of new business. Old business, there are no items. Brings us to item 10, report of the town manager.
Thanks. Senior Center Outreach Coordinator, as mentioned earlier, we'll likely hire to offer, make a job offer tomorrow. We have a DPW supervisor spot open. We're looking at a few different things as to how we're gonna move with that, but we'll have some good applicants, and when we're ready to move, we will. I've been in budget meetings all last week and this week. The town side budget will certainly be very reasonable in my estimation. We have very good grant news down the road, pending what the heck happened yesterday. But we have some very good grant news down the road. We're very lucky to have Megan Massa here. When I can announce it, waiting on the governor, we will. I met with both new registrars. It went well. I spoke of confidence, the confidence that we had in Mr. Bach and Mr. Wyman. Personally, to lose those two was painful, as they were a morale builder for staff. If you were in a bad mood or something, you could go down and hang out with Mr. Wyman and Mr. Bach, and it just spun everything around. It was just and the way they worked was just a picture of how politics, I've said this 100 times, politics should be. I look for that moving forward with our new registrars as well. We had, as mentioned earlier, we had we met with the delinquent tax committee meeting. What do we do, 10 or so, I believe. One spun positive today and will be paid off already. So we're it's already moving pretty well. The assessor, our town assessor, continues to be very busy with his reval meetings, but everything going smooth. Our administrative resident trooper, Corey, is going to be on military leave for 6 months, way overseas. They will replace him with a temporary. The lieutenant from Troop C reached out to me and asked my input in said replacement, as did Corey. So I'm very thankful for that gesture on their part. I assume it'll be a smooth transition. In other news, 62 through 70 Merrill Road, Subway, Papa T's, Electric Blue, the package store in Napa have sold. They were in today. They registered the deed in town. And it's a new owner from out of state with an address in Florida, an LLC address in Florida. I met with the new owner. He intends on running a adult orientated business as similar to the Electric Blue moving forward, but we'll wait for the permits. There'll be some permit processes moving forward. Our staff is ready to continue through that. Parks Garage is underway. They hit some ledge and we had to move it a little bit, some engineering, but I don't expect it to be any sort of significant delay at all. I met with the new appointee from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Meeting went well. I'm very, very happy with the selection there to replace the legendary Mayor Lee. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions.
Questions for Brian? I just have one, Brian. If you or Mike Wilkinson could just provide the summary that we typically get monthly for the contaminated wells.
I'll start. If Mike has anything to add, you will have. You might have gotten a letter today, or you'll get it tomorrow to review. That will go out to the vineyards. That was the delay. Some of the delay was mine in one, getting to it, and then two, changes, and then I made changes. It has to go back to council to review.
Yeah,
when I say counsel, the attorney.
yeah.
And then it is, and, we met today and talked about it. Mike, am I missing anything?
Nope, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. So I had any other questions for Brian? That brings us to item 11, adoption of minutes. We've got two sets of minutes, the January 14th regular meeting minutes and then the special meeting minutes on that same night. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt those minutes. All right. Both sets of minutes, is that?
Yes, both sets.
Is there a second for that motion? Any discussion? Counselor Noonan,
Aye.
Counselor Butler,
Hi.
Counselor Yudichak,
Aye.
Counselor Moran,
Aye.
Counselor Beebe,
I abstain.
and I will vote to adopt those minutes, so that passes. All right, correspondence to council. We get anything?
We only really got two on committee today, but I'll start with the one like Brian forwarded us last week regarding the fire on Robin Circle. She sent us an email thanking the amazing team between the fire crew, Dr. Willett, and a big shout out to Fire Marshal Rob DeBica that gave her a huge help, especially trying to figure out the insurance process to that. So I just wanted to mention, we got a nice email from a resident. And then the other one was in support of the march that we discussed today. It was a lengthy email, so I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but he was in support of it. But he also did mention that aligns with the conservation and development approved by the PCC. So that's all I received, or we received.
All right, brings us to chairperson's report. I don't have very much tonight. I'll just say it was really nice honoring Mr. Bach and Mr. Werner tonight. It was really special. Done a lot for the town. And also I'm just really excited to see the marsh go to a public hearing. That's going to be a great addition to the town. It's all signed and taken care of. So definitely some exciting things going on. All right, item 14, communications and petitions from council persons. Yep.
Just two quick things. One,
yeah.
Unfortunately, Mr. Deegan left again like last time, but the assessment information is online.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to put instructions like on our front page or something. I don't know, but just for the record, it is online.
Thank you.
It's a little bit of a maze to get there, but it is. And then I want to welcome Marilee first in person meeting. So good having you here.
Yeah. That's the third thing. I was thinking. Yes, welcome to the council.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you in person.
Yeah, thank you.
We missed you last time. Anything else from counselors? Brings us to item 15, public participation. These finance topics seem to make everybody go away. I saw. That's it. All right, I think we just have one person and.
Nope, that's my hand.
Oh, that's you. Okay,
Yep.
then
I have no
there's no, that item is moved.
It's like planning and zoning doing signage regulation.
Yeah, right. Time to go to bed.
Nothing moves
Yeah.
real faster.
Right. All right, so that brings us to adjournment. Is there any objection to adjournment? Good Lord. No objection, we're adjourned at 9:22.